Image models have been relying on diffusion as a core technique for several years now. The problem with diffusion, in my mind, is that it's very hard for it to be very precise. I'm surprised how far it got pushed in terms of rendering of full sentences, for example, but it cannot do some things that models like Nano Banana can do, for example, where you give it some data and it will output precise charts, which would be to scale and so on. So it's something that you could actually imagine a consultant using in a presentation, or maybe at some point it could be that an architect could just give it a bunch of inputs and it could create a perfect architectural diagram. That could happen with other techniques, but it's very hard to see how that could happen with diffusion-based models. To me, it feels like just looking at our data, and anecdotally as well, it doesn't feel like there's been that much improvement in diffusion-only models in the last kind of year or so. And if you look at the Google models, not the Nano Banana models, but other models, Imagen 3 and Imagen 4, and we didn't see that much improvement in terms of the rankings of these two models. And more anecdotally as well, it is a slightly better model, but certainly not that much better. The prediction that I've got is that by half year, there wouldn't be any diffusion-based models in our leaderboard in the top 5. So we'll see new models come out that are not diffusion only, and then they will just surpass the diffusion-based models. We don't know exactly how these models work, so I don't want to be overly precise on the techniques because I probably was going to get that wrong, but it looks like they work in a quite different way. At a high level, what we want, regardless of maybe precise technique that is applied, what we want is much more fine-grained control. So we want to say, okay, take this bit of the image, take it out, replace it with this. And you can kind of do it with masking techniques with diffusion, but it's still nowhere near as precise. And maybe it could work if you just want to take the square out, for example. But if I've got a decorated wall or something like that, you want to replace every flower with another flower or something like that, then it just becomes completely impossible to do with diffusion-based techniques. There are definitely different approaches that we've seen where they're much more precise, and where I would hope that we're going to get to, and I haven't really seen exactly how it might work, is the kind of more reasoning-based models. And it could be done maybe with reasoning-based text and then with the reasoning-based images being generated from it. But that still feels like a little bit indirect. So I'm hoping someone's going to come up with some interesting way how we could have reasoning-based images or reasoning-based songs as well, for example. That would be really fun to see, where the generations are not done in this kind of one shot. But for example, for songs, it's maybe interesting to explore that sometimes when you hear really good songs being written, you can not only detect certain very repetitive pattern, there's sometimes pattern breaks, and then there's something else, and then there's something else. And there's certainly many different songs that you can't imagine the AI's writing at all. So like a Bohemian Rhapsody, there is no way AI could write this. Not because it's kind of can't write any segment of this song, so like presumably it could, but put it all together, I think with current techniques it's completely impossible. It just doesn't work in that kind of way. So similar for images, I hope that with songs and with audio, we get these kind of more closer to reasoning-based techniques, which can give us much more variety and much more precision in how this media could be generated.